Good morning. Thank you for being here. One quick note about marrying my wife at SIB. I married a woman who said she'd never marry a preacher. So it was either my charm and persuasion or her mercy. So I haven't decided which one that is yet. It's probably the latter.
Well, you are a Marine, so wouldn't give up.
What I'm going to talk about is a brief history of the satellite schools, just to kind of give a foundation, a context. And then I'm going to also talk about the past 2 to 3 weeks. I just took over this position for SIBI January 1st. Okay, so it hasn't been that long. But for the past 2 to 3 weeks, I've been calling churches and satellite schools to kind of get an idea of where they are. And I've got a lot more work to do because there's a lot of them. And then I'm going to briefly talk about the future of where we want to go with satellite schools. But I've got some foundation to lay first. So satellite schools and churches obviously depend on leadership. And this is in my view, this is the biggest component of why satellite schools and churches are successful or fail. Upon God's blessing, obviously, is at the top of all that. But God blesses churches with leaders, elderships. And I asked Richard Rogers one time, I said, Richard, why do you see some churches that just flourish and grow in small areas, and you see other churches that are just can't get off the ground in big areas and places that you think they would? And he told me that in his experience, that the reason that churches, and I'm going to assume this is going to be for satellite schools too, is directly related, the growth of those congregations and satellite schools is directly related to the people and their ability to lead them. And so satellite schools need people getting behind it, and that's the members, that's the church leadership. And if we can't make an impact on them and the importance of that, it's not going to be successful. And so that's why I was hired. And I'll talk about that more in a little bit. I have some visuals here for you. So I had to get a date, and I'm glad Richard showed up because I guessed the mid-70s, and he told me it was 1972. But this is the first recording of a SIBI class, and there's not many people in here younger than me, I would assume, but that's one of the first recordings of an SIBI class, and it's Ed Horton's Christian Evidences class from 1972, so we still have it. So we'll go over this other stuff in a second, but in 1988, 1990, Sunset began recording video courses. That's when they started doing the video courses in 27-minute lengths. So when they had pauses and stuff, they could do it for the cable television. So they'd have the pauses for the commercial, the breaks for the commercial, and it'd end up being a 30-minute segment. And Virgil was the head of the extension school at that time, and he oversaw their production. So he was a big component of getting all this off the ground. In 1993, we had the Learning Center. That concept was launched as churches were used these videos to advance their Bible study and their teaching programs. 1994-95, Jerry Pruitt. Unrelated, but he tells me that he thinks we're related if we go back a few generations. But do we accept him for that? No. Okay. So
Yes, we do accept you.
So 94-95, Jerry Pruitt and Bob Martin joined the staff to help advance the program. Richard Cravy came in 1996, and I'm going to tell you, I remember him coming because I helped him move. So they asked the class, they said, we need a few people to help Richard move. And so Kyle Cantrell and I and a few girls from AIM went and helped him move. And Richard, you had a lot of stuff. We got it done, though.
2 U-Haul trucks.
2 U-Haul trucks. So In 97, Satellite School was named to to replace the learning centers, just to help structures for the congregations and administrators and help with the registration fees and documentation and everything. And all that started during that time in 1997. And the Sunset Video Studio was open when Bob Martin is a video specialist, and I remember them doing this in the flag room. They'd set up these black sheets in the flag room, and they'd have video cameras there, and Richard would be there, and he'd have a microphone strapped around his neck, and Ed Wharton would be doing it. So that's where that was done at the first. In 98, the first Satellite School Facilitators workshop was conducted in Lubbock, and so they gave books like this, the administrators workshop, and they would teach them how to administer satellite schools. And in 98 and 99, there was 20 complete courses in a 27-minute, or 12 lessons, or 24 lessons. 2003, there were 32 courses available. And so their transition to DVDs happened at that point. So it went from this audio tape to the VHS tapes, which are almost non-existent anymore because the tape on the VHS tapes wear out, obviously, over time. But these weren't the first workbooks that were printed because they had those spiral bindings that they had. Those were the first ones. But these are the... How is that? I still have some too. And then these came out. And then they had the textbooks accompanying the class when you bought it, the VHS tapes of the DVDs. And then they had the audio tapes for the class and the video for the class. Those came out. And now they have the videotapes, but this one is in Arabic. This is historical Christian evidences in Arabic. And this is historical Christian evidences in Russian. And the digital library app we have now as well has English plus 4 other languages on there. And so a lot of the courses that they teach are on that app. So are you guys familiar with the Sunset Digital Library app? You guys? Okay. So,
What's the name of that app?
Sunset Digital Library.
In your app store. There's a lot of stuff on there, actually.
Yeah. So right now, what's on there is you can go on there, the 2022 SIBI workshop that's going on right now. You can actually go on there and listen to it live. You can listen to a YouTube live when the class is going on. It's being taped and put on YouTube at that moment. And you can actually go on and listen to it at that moment if you're somewhere else. You don't have to be here. And so all of the lessons and all the videos and everything are on that app. So you can go back and watch them. If the ones that you missed, you can go back and watch them. The only ones they don't have on there are some of the women's classes that are in the other building over here because they didn't have another camera. So, and then, more presently, the solar player. So, how many of you have played with this? All of the courses are on this. When they pass this out to, there's places in Africa that don't have power still, which is unbelievable in this day and age, but they still don't, and other places around the world. And they have videos and pictures of people listening to this and becoming Christians because they hear the Word of God on this. And it's especially helpful in those areas because some of the people still don't know how to read. And they can hear it being broadcasted in their language even though they can't read their language. So that's another helpful use of this. So, sadly, in 2021, Virgil Yoakum passed away, and he was head of the Sunset External Studies for 45 years. And Sunset Online has made part of the residential program at Sunset to prevent more parity between the requirements for residential and online students. The satellite school program was placed under the oversight of Sunset Advancement. And each year, at least since 2011, there's graduates from the satellite schools and online programs have joined the residential graduate studies at their graduation. So it's growing. It's becoming more and more vibrant, and we still have a lot of things to do with that. So let me talk real quick about what I've been seeing. I've been talking to a lot of congregations, a lot of administrators of satellite schools. They're still calling me back. So I'm actually working out of my home office in Albuquerque, and SIBI has given me a desk phone that I use through the internet. So when I call people, it's an 806 number and not a 505. And it works really well. So, I mean, technology is something else. When I call administrators and when I call church leadership, I get, right now, there's a huge, how do I say this? A lot of the satellite schools are just now getting back going because COVID has hit them a lot, as you can imagine. Most of the ones I have called had to shut down for a while, and they're just now coming back. And there's been some of them that since they had to shut down, a lot of their members, the people that were in the satellite school, aren't interested anymore. And so it's going to be a small rebuilding process that we're going to have to go through. And that's where the church leadership comes in, because people have to get behind this. The church leadership and the church members have to be able to get behind the satellite schools to get this going again.
Britton,
Yes.
you may be planning to cover this, but how many satellite schools were there before COVID?
Well, that's another thing. What's the software we use to keep it? The database.
Sugar is one of them. I don't know what the
No, it starts with an A. Arena. So I'm in Arena, and there's like 2 or 3 different databases that I'm trying to get all the information off and put it all in Arena, because we're going to eventually go to all Arena. So to my best guess, there's probably about 160 active satellite schools in the United States, and there's probably 30 active internationally. But I've got records in Arena, there's probably records of 800 churches in there that we have information for. So to give you an accurate number, I just don't know if I can.
That's good enough.
But okay. Yes.
churches get active, then they drop off and others come on, and so it's been a
Right.
fluid thing for a long time. So.
One of the things that may be involved in that is that a church that I preached for, prior to my being there, they didn't have a satellite school, but they heavily utilized the satellite school materials, so they had an interactive relationship with you, though I don't believe they called themselves a satellite school. They ordered the materials, utilized the materials, had classes both on-site and off-site, never called it a satellite school.
But that's what we want. Yeah, that's
They were
what,
just doing it, they weren't really calling it a school.
and that's what,
That may be among the 800.
Yeah.
we're talking about.
right, and that's what we want for the churches. And that's part of the reason they hired me, is because I'm going to get as much information as I can. I'm going to visit as many churches over the years as I can to make sure that they have what they need to train their churches and to equip them and to build the leadership. But we don't necessarily, we want them to be a satellite school. But if they don't want to be a satellite school, at least use the material to educate the members. And so that's great. That's what we want.
But that may skew your numbers, is the reason I said that.
Okay, yeah. So, and I'm finding all that out. Been 3 weeks, but yeah, thank you.
Is there, not, I shouldn't be asking this,
Go ahead, no, please.
is there a particular size of congregation that would be more receptive to the satellite school I mean, Sunset doesn't have one. Yeah, I mean, maybe we don't need one because we've got the school right here, but before COVID, our average attendance was maybe 1,300. So is there a particular size? You may not know this, but.
To answer your question, I don't
He knows.
I don't see that, but Richard, would you like to hear?
You can leave it there.
Okay.
Our experience has been over the 25 plus years I've been here is that congregations under 100 are our number one audience. Now, we reach out to all of them, but the ones who are most receptive to it are those who are under 100 or even under 60, I would even say, because they are lacking in teachers, adequate number of qualified teachers to teach in their own program. Many of them only have one minister, and so everything is required of the minister, and he doesn't have time to teach all the classes at the level they'd like and fill the pulpit and do all the other things. So they have traditionally been our number one receptive audience. And I know with a small congregation I preached for 18 years, before I retired 4 years ago from that, our size was about 30-something. And they ran the satellite school for 18, well, they actually ran it for 20 years, and then COVID came along and they've shut down and they haven't started back up yet. But yeah, these smaller congregations are the ones most needy. Right. Large congregations like Sunset have multiple ministers, many other men and women who are good teachers, and they have really active teaching programs already, so they don't see this as much of a need for them. No matter what we think about it, they don't see that as much of a need for them as small churches do.
Yep. Thank you. Bob, please ask all the questions you want, because this we're trying to define this as
No, you don't want me to.
we're trying to define this as we go along.
I'll tell you how we used it after I went through the training in '98.
First year.
We used it, I used it, I was the deacon in charge of education. I used it a couple different ways. We had a couple people that actually started taking classes from Sunset Online from that. And then when I tried to get teachers to teach a new teacher trained, I could give them the book and the video, and they could watch it being taught and follow along on the video so they could prepare themselves to teach it live. And then we used it one time where we just had someone who didn't feel confident teaching at all. They just ran the video player and played, I think, Abe Lincoln teaching Acts or something like that. And so it's flexible enough, the way I experienced it. It was flexible enough you could use it a lot of different ways. But it typically would be used because you don't have a lot of men who are systematically trained to teach. So you could, it would work better if you had a minister who had gone through the Sunset program, because he would cheer it on a little bit more. We had a guy who was an MDiv from Abilene, so he was not quite cheering us on, but also being very conservative. He saw the value of it, so it was a nice compliment to our program, because teachers could get themselves trained with it and use it.
Yeah, this is a work that's going to be progressing over time. We're going to grow this over time, but it's going to take time to reach out to all the congregations and get them for me to contact them and get them aware of what we have to offer. Sunset can provide them with basically anything they need to grow their church's members and mature them and anything. So, in almost in any format that they do need. So we just need to know what they want or what they need. So
sometimes they don't know what they need.
Well, that's what I'm.
They don't even know.
That's what I'm doing when I'm calling them. SIBI wants to be a resource for these churches, satellite schools and other areas. And there may be other avenues that we have that we can provide for these churches that we don't know of yet, that somebody may bring them and say, hey, can you do this? And if we are not able to, maybe we can figure out a way to do it. providing Sunday school materials for not necessarily adults, but for children too. And so just giving back to churches. Sunset has been blessed over the past 60 years with people that have come here, people that have donated to SIBI, and we're at a place where we can say, we want to give back to the churches. And by giving back to the churches and helping them with everything that they need, and not necessarily selling anything to them, I mean, that's going to happen naturally a little bit, but they're going to be providing for Sunset with students and resources as we do that. And so we're just trying to foster a relationship, if you will. And that's the whole purpose that's behind this. You want to fill in anything? Okay. So any other questions? Yes.
We talked yesterday about maybe making a simple list for those of us that are still technology challenged.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother Dan here was sharing something that would be really awesome. Because as we were doing the satellite school for the last 5 or 6 years, that once you find that course you want to teach, then you had to kind of hunt the library to find the book you needed. Then you had to kind of hunt to find the bigger one, the actual, the smaller size, the one that had all the words that was spoken. I don't know what that's called.
The textbook.
The textbook, thank you.
This one?
Yeah, the small one.
So I guess where I'm headed with this question is, because the pictures on the front of those don't always match each other either. Is there a way that my idea with you of making a simple list on the website somewhere, put under there the links to the books that you need to facilitate with that?
I thought they did. I thought they do have those, but
It's hunt and peck sometimes, and maybe I'm using it wrong, and I told you that yesterday.
yeah.
But after 21 years in the military, I like the KISS method. And then when it comes to technology, I really need the KISS method.
Yeah.
So please keep it simple for the student, so that we can just don't problem.
Okay.
And I don't understand what all that would take. But it would just make it easier for us that are still trying to do this.
Yeah, and I can definitely pass that on and talk to the powers to be. I don't know if Richard has anything to do with that, but
I just wanted to add the book called connection in there. 'Cause we've gotten the wrong books before. Not
okay.
it's fault, it just happens.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And you may get to this, you can just say, I'll tell you later. But we've been up and running for about 3 to 4 years, I forget which it is, but
Where are you?
Groesbeck.
Okay.
And we've had and have full-time students. And we have also, along with those students that are not full-time, and when I say full-time, up until he passed away in April, I had one student taking 12 to 15 hours a semester.
Wow.
He was doing full-time. We were supporting him full-time to do so. Caught COVID and he passed. But I've got students that are both enrolled as well as 35 or 40 that are auditing. And we just purchased Life of Christ to get the next semester up and running. But with the digital library, is the logic of the digital library that I won't purchase the Life of Christ next time? If I were to teach it again, I would go to the digital library and throw it up on our screen in the front of the auditorium, and away we go. What's changing? Or is it still going to be, I'm going to buy the video and buy the books and stuff like that?
Okay, the question is, up until now, most of our material has been available either as audio or video, and most recently as CDs or DVDs for schools to use, or they could move over into the Sunset Online program, which made it all streaming over the internet, but that usually was for individual students, not for schools. But we do have the plans in place to try to go all digital for the schools themselves. Now, right now, the Sunset Digital Library does not have these specific courses that are for the satellite schools on there, but that will be changing. Because less and less are we going to ask congregations to even own a DVD player. If they have internet access, or if not that, then have a television that they can plug a device into, then this device will be a kind of a portable solid state drive. We'll have all the material on there and they can just play it by that means. We're trying to adapt as our world moves away from physical media into the digital. And while a lot of our stuff is already up there, the satellite schools are the one part that we haven't quite moved forward with yet for various reasons I don't need to go into. But we are going there, and that's part of the vision for the future, that with Britton working with us, he can go to congregations and say, hey, you don't even need a DVD player to do this. And if you want access to it. But that doesn't happen overnight. So, but that is our plan, to go all digital. And for those who still need the older technology, we'll continue to maintain that for the foreseeable future too.
So I have a question about this magic word called free.
That's where I was going with it.
Sorry to steal your thunder there.
No, it's okay.
But the way we're training people right now for the Vietnam Bible Institute is because we don't have the sunset materials in Vietnamese, which
Right.
we're going to try and translate a lot of it in there. But we take them through the World English Institute material, and then we take them through World Video Bible School. That we have a person who's transcribed all of it into English or Vietnamese, so they can watch it in English, see it in Vietnamese. And once they're done with that, we're having them applied to the Singapore Calling Program, where they'll go and do the full sunset curriculum there. Well, I would like to cut World Video Bible School out of this and have them watch the sunset videos as English preparation to go to Singapore Calling. See, ultimately, once we have our people trained over there, we will cut Singapore Calling out of it and teach people in Vietnamese in Vietnam with the sunset curriculum.
Yeah,
But I've got baby steps here.
Right.
So,
Making access to our material digitally, there hasn't been a final decision about cost and so forth. The thought has been floated that either we will make the material itself free, or it will be on a very low subscription. In other words, churches might pay, I'm just throwing a number out here,
right.
$10 a month. They have access to all this material digitally.
Right.
Now, some things like print books and things like that we can't give those away free because they don't give them to us. But the video itself
Right.
and that sort of stuff will be available as inexpensively as we can make it. And if that's free, then it will be free.
Okay.
But we just don't. That's what's being worked out so far.
Right. Now, the next question you're going to get hit with, like with World Video Bible School, they let us have a Vietnamese speaker who speaks English transcribe. So there's a Vietnamese version of it on YouTube. See, there's the
Right.
closed caption for Vietnamese with the English. So is it going to be possible to do that with
Well,
the videos?
we certainly hope so. We've already partnered with Portuguese speakers in Brazil, and we have our entire
Right.
curriculum in Portuguese now.
And this Creole is
We're
coming.
back work. Much of our material is already available in Spanish. We have brothers in the French world who's doing it in French. As Britton mentioned already, Arabic is gradually being worked on. We don't have anyone working in Russian right now for us, but we have people in Ethiopia doing the Amharic language. And so, yeah, it's much bigger than we are.
Right. Well,
And-
originally we thought we were going to just translate the class materials and the books into Vietnamese, but we need to close caption those videos in
Yeah,
Vietnamese.
we do see this as being multilingual, obviously.
Okay.
And
Thank
hopefully at some point we can either partner with you and your school and
We'll do that.
or someone else to get it into Vietnamese as well.
Well,
So
we have historical Christian evidences and the distinctive nature of the church roughly translated into Vietnamese, the printed materials. So,
and as our country, even the United States, is becoming more multinational in terms of the population and multilingual in terms of people, then those materials will be just as valuable within our borders as they are all the way around the world. So.
And I would just say that as technology advances and places like Google and other databases and everything else advance, I would probably say that it could be maybe 10 years. I mean, we may not even need a translator anymore. You might have stuff that will be translated automatically for you online.
so there is a some interesting things happening.
Right. So it's because that stuff happens through apps right now, pretty fluid.
Since you brought it up, I'll throw you another. The problem is that with theological materials, they grab the lexicon from our Christian people that like Christianity, who are in the denomination, and they use all their terminology, and when they actually transcribe some of these things, and so we need to give them the real lexicon, so to speak, because they're like there's in Vietnamese there's a Catholic lexicon, and then there's a so-called Protestant lexicon, and then there's a Restoration lexicon. that so things come in differently. They refer to God differently. They talk about baptism differently.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a can of worms.
That's always been the nature of research. I don't think that's going to change. So, but thank you. It's
Sorry to stop you. I just
no, guys, I welcome questions. I mean, if I don't know it, nobody else knows it. I'll do my best to find out. So, I mean, that's pretty much the material that I had to cover. I just wanted to say that we're trying to look to the future, and I'm calling satellite schools, and I'm asking them what they need and how they see this going in the future, and I'm making notes of all that in Arena, and I'm keeping notes myself to make sure that we can try to facilitate and what we can do, and then I'm going to use those notes to talk to Jeff and Zane and see if there's a way we can incorporate that into our lessons or what we're going to be doing in the future. And so this what I'm doing, believe it or not, is kind of a ground roots thing, and I'm trying to get this built and gathering all this data to see if we can make all the information that we have in our database current. I'm doing it as fast as I can, but it does take time. But once we do that, we can make sure that we have what we need, and we can give the churches and the leaderships what they need, or even what they want, to be able to facilitate and help their members mature and grow.
Is part of your role do we have anybody, will it be part of your role to go out and to contact congregations that don't have a satellite school?
Yes.
Try to set them up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So my initial 6-month mission is to contact all of our active schools, and then once I get all the information and see if I can get all the information current in the first 6 months, and then I start contacting people that don't have, the churches that don't have schools. And part of that is I'm going to be talking to elders and instructors at SIBI and Sunset and other places that give me leads of congregations that they think may want it or need it that don't have it. And because I'm sure I could probably get a few hundred churches out of them doing that. So that's the initial idea. Yes.
I fall into that category that he's talking about. We're a small congregation. Since COVID, around 40. And I wouldn't say we're technologically illiterate, but we're not. and I have, and the elders have been talking about this. I have a couple of people that are probably going to enroll, but we want to use it as some leadership training and maybe teacher training different ways.
Right.
He was talking about lists. As far as lists, maybe the technological end of it. Is there any help available for some of that kind of stuff?
So as I contact churches, when I see those problems arise and they say, hey, we would like to be able to, get the internet going here in our classroom, and I'm going to talk to them to see what they have and what they need. I can also do a fact-finding mission and drive down there or fly down there and see what they have to set up, and I can talk to Richard and Jeff and Zane and see what we can do to get them going like that. But as of now, I mean, the plans are, like Richard said, are to have all this on an app. So all they have to have is a phone, and they could be able to do that, or a computer. And the way phones are going, you could have a mini HDMI cord and hook it up to your phone into your TV, and you could play stuff on your TV from your phone, or you could do it through an app with Apple Play. So it's getting to the point where, and the world's getting smaller. Let's put it that way. But yeah, I mean, any solution that I can provide, I mean, I can probably think of any solution. If I go and visit your congregation, I can probably think of a solution for you
Well,
to be able to get it going.
They can't, you know, I can get some 14-year-olds to do it.
Well, and that's true.
No, really.
Because there are things on my phone sometimes I'm like, wow, how did I get that done? It's like, to my son, Nathaniel, come here. And he's like, and he does it, and I'm like, I said, don't even explain it to me.
Then you can't find anything else.
Right.
But we probably will be contacting you.
Yes.
I don't think we're going to set up a school per se, but we
Okay.
want to start utilizing.
That being said, I have cards. So you guys, my contact information on here. So if you guys want to, yeah, if you could just pass those back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. So please, anything that you guys need, please call me, because we need to reach out to as many congregations as possible. If you guys have leads for other congregations, please call me and let me know.
I don't know if I talked to you about this as well yesterday. Some of us have talked in the past at our church. I like where the technology's headed, where it's easier for us to get to it and all that. And I appreciate all that.
Mm-hmm.
Are any of the videos going to be updated, less grainy, or a newer? The material's awesome. I love Richard Rogers and all those. So are we going to update the teaching at all?
Yes.
All right, I'm not asking that to be disrespectful of those that have taught before. I'm saying we're moving forward with technology, but we're still using the same grainy videos because they've been changed so many times.
The answer to that is yes.
And I realize that takes time. I like
Yeah.
the yes word, that, because I think that's important, is we're saying we're updating. We need to update.
It'd be
So-
hard for Richard Rogers to
Yeah, I was going to say.
redo his video.
Technologically, maybe it can be cleaned up technologically, I don't
Well,
know.
that's why I say there's no disrespect to the teachers that have gone.
No, I know.
But we are, especially younger people, when they're watching a video that looks like Richard Rogers with the fatter tie and the formality of it, they're not as interested but because we are in a visual society now.
No, and I understand your problem, because one time I played a class for Ed Wharton for a youth group, and as soon as he remember, he had those dark rim glasses and stuff. They laughed as soon as he came on.
Because of distraction is the problem.
I understand, and I guess the what's the word I'm looking for, the terror for me is that nobody can replace these teachers in the past.
That's why I said there's no disrespect.
No, but the quality of the video is something to be desired, and so I mean, there's some of the best teachers, in my opinion, that the Brotherhood's ever had.
But there's some great ones out there.
And yeah,
You've got you've got two versions of the life of Christ. And
Yeah.
I picked the one with Richard for the reasons you're saying right now. That time and all, we're going to show Richard.
but we do, but they're right. We do have to be sensitive to the fact that those men and those classes mean so much to us, and they impress us so much, and our emotions are tied to it. But it may not be like that for the younger generation.
And you
You
might
know?
recognize this statement from the military, but that's the way we always did it. Isn't always the right answer. We're talking about younger people, technology, getting a 14-year-old to help
Right.
us out. That 14-year-old isn't going to sit there and help us out if we can't appeal to the 14-year-old.
No, you're right.
who wants to be an aimer.
It does matter.
It's a circle.
Yeah, which, getting time to close out on our class, but you're exactly right. And this is a new initiative. This is a new beginning,
It's exciting.
what
Yeah.
we're talking about right now. Refreshed efforts and greater efforts to produce new materials and new versions of the older classes using other teaching techniques. What used to work, just simple lecture, is not always what works now with our newer generations coming up. And we're committed to doing that. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of resources, and it's going to take some patience on your part. But, I'm committed to doing that as the head of this department now. And I know Ron, who was, when Virgil retired, when Ron was over our department, he was committed to that as well. So, but right now we just go with what we have, and then we'll start, running as fast as we can to start adding these other things. And I think it's never going to be a never-ending process, first of all, because by the time we think we've caught up, then everything's changed, and we need to go back to the beginning and start doing that all over again. But we love being able to serve the churches. That's the mission of Sunset, is to serve churches and individuals and teaching the Word of God and getting the gospel out into our world. And this is very much a part of how we're going to do that.
And let me make one last comment and we'll get to you. All of these ideas, everything that you can think of or everything that you hear somebody say, please email me and tell me these ideas again, because I'm not going to remember everything you said in this class. That's recorded, but I can go back and look at it. But please email me all your concerns, all your ideas, everything that you have, and I will catalog them. I will talk to somebody about them, and they will be addressed in some way at some point as soon as we can. But I need you to send them to me so I can put them down so we don't forget. So
I'm not nitpicking. The bookstore, ordering books. I'm the guy that with him that's been ordering books for the last 5, 6, 7 years. Sometimes I'll call the bookstore with a question, and they'll be like, okay, we'll get the answer, we'll get right back with you. 3, 5, 6, 7 days go by, I'll call back next week. I never heard anything about that.
yeah,
And
So who's our point of contact for those questions?
what I was wondering is it going to stay through the bookstore, the externals, or can they get somebody maybe that's assigned to handle external studies? Or
Well, the
because
challenge-
especially during
Yeah.
semester change, if you
Yeah.
want to order something or have a question, the bookstore's hammered.
Yes. And part of the challenge we have is we have 2 employees in our bookstore, serving hundreds of congregations and hundreds and even thousands of individuals. And there's only so much they can do. And we're working on that. A lot of our people now, of course, are ordering online or through the internet, and that helps some because we're not having to answer so many telephone calls. But I'm the guy that ends with,
Right.
if you need to, you can call and say, hey, can I talk to Richard?
Okay.
And I will make sure it gets taken care of.
Do you have a card as well?
I do. I didn't bring very many of them with me here. But when you call the bookstore, I'm in the bookstore. My office is there. So
Okay.
you can just ask for me if you need to.
Okay.
And subject to my availability, because sometimes I'm over across the street here teaching courses, and my wife has got great health problems, so sometimes I'm not in the office quite as much. But they get the messages to me, and they don't just lay on my desk unanswered. I take care of
Okay.
that.
Thank you, sir.
Bob.
I know this doesn't need to be said at all, but I'm going to say it anyway, because we would all agree with this. Obviously, our methods have to change, but our message can never.
That's right.
Oh,
Amen. I agree to that.
Right.
Use the same book.
no.
And our concern is, sometimes we see, even in our brotherhood, it looks like it's not just the message that's changing. It looks like the message is changing too. And we're committed to the message
That's my point.
in its fullness and completeness. So
Yep. It's about Jesus, and I mean, obviously that's the entire message, and it's about carrying the message of the gospel of Jesus to the lost. So,
I was just going to say that we
close
had,
it down.
okay.
for Vietnam Bible Institute, we've been talking to Princeton and Doug Reeves and people like that. But I can see now that making your acquaintance is really important to us, because we're kind of we're in the nuts and bolts of
Yeah.
class by class trying to figure out how we can move forward with what we're trying to do, and I can see that you're my new best friend.
Yes. And so I'll do what I can. So everybody, thank you for attending. And if you have any further questions, just please email me, call me, or otherwise, and we will get the answer for you.
Thank you, brother.
You're very welcome.